give us a short prayer?
Sure.
All right. And you lead us in the pledge of the flag.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you. We thank you for this city. We thank you for the privilege of living here. We thank you for the fellowship that we share with each other within these bounds. Father, we ask your blessing upon this meeting, upon our clarity of mind, decisions to be made. And Father, we lift that up in your Son, Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen. Join me in saluting our flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes from the last meeting. Can we have a roll call, please? We did
Mayor Hill. Commissioner Brown.
present.
Commissioner Campbell.
President.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Gorham.
Present.
Mr. Deputy.
Present.
Got a quorum.
It will be late.
All right, then, now can I have minutes approved?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's been motioned and approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Wow.
Public comment. Anybody here for public comment? Nobody? We're here for a request for funding from our Barton Trail. And the following is on the September the 29th, October 1st, and September, what did I say?
It's the 29th
Okay.
and 30th.
29th of September and October 1st. And we have Mr. Sam here.
I am here. I'm Sam Carr, here in Putnam County. That's me. Did everybody get a copy of this document here? Okay. So since I don't know how this stuff goes, I'll just plunder on, okay? This festival was started as a grassroots effort from the Bartram Trails Committee, which is a part of the Putnam Blueways and Trails CSO, which is a 501c3. We have partnered with 35 different collaborating groups, and we wanted this festival to be Palatka's Riverfront Festival. That was the idea behind this thing. It started a long time ago. So as we started building it, we did it along those lines. We wanted to build this festival to be similar to the Crescent City's Catfish Festival, in that it would be a money-making event for civic groups and nonprofits here in Putnam County, not a moneymaker for any particular other group. And that's the way we have tried to design this. Mayor Hill pledged his allegiance to our effort quite a while ago, saying that he wanted the city of Palatka to partner with us in this event. So here's where we wind up. If you follow down the dollars and cents, we applied to the TDC for a cultural grant and an event grant. We got $3,500 for each one of those grants. That's a reimbursement grant, which means that we have to spend the money before we get it back. Then subsequently, over the last few weeks, we applied from the city of Palatka through the Putnam Blueways and Trails group to the Department of Educational, or what is DEO stand for? Economic Opportunity Grant for another $10,700, which means that we've applied for $17,700 in grant money, all reimbursement funds. I put at the top of the thing, the Putnam Blueways and Trails Bartram account has $900 in it. So you can see the $17,000 that's essential for us going on with this. We have also solicited sponsorship agreements with GP, who declined our original agreement with them, and Beck Auto, Bass Pro, Florida Power and Light, Douglas and Headstrong have all expressed interest, and we've invited them to sponsorship with that amount of money. We expect a potential event income to the committee of about $2,000, and that will be just vendor fees and those kind of things. So that's what we've got planned right We had our special events meeting with the special events permitting folks, and we have a bill for $2,076 from the city of Palatka to conduct the event. When we applied for the grants above, our TDC budget for the entire grant was $16,450, and the DEO grant was $20,221. And again, the difference between those was just the difference between the time. One was submitted in March, and now here we are in July, and so that's the difference in those two grant amounts. So what would I love for the CRA to do? I would love for the CRA to do something about the special events invoice, obviously, and I'd also respectfully request that the CRA loan to the committee an amount of money. I put $10,000 in here because it's a round figure, and that amount of money would be for us to spend the grant money in order to get it back. So that would be repaid back to the CRA once the grants had been submitted and returned back to us. So that's what I put down there.
Question on the grants.
Okay.
Are those grants that we know that we're gonna have?
$7,000 of the grants we know we're going to have.
Okay.
And we will know about the other $10,000 in grants. That goes to the city of Palatka now. And that grant we will know about before the end of the month.
Yeah, the DEO grant, you can only apply for it if you're a municipality or a county. So the city applied along with them as a partner for that one.
So is that what they requested, the 10,700 here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Three questions.
All right.
So what you're asking for, one, is a loan.
Yeah.
Two, you're asking for something to be done with special event fees.
Yeah.
And three, my third question so far is, are all these events happening strictly within the confines of the CRA district?
Yes, with one exception, and that would be Palatka. And all we're doing there is having a paddling event. Palatka is having the grand opening of their soft landing on Saturday.
Okay, my question with that, and the reason I'm asking is we're not allowed to spend money on anything that happens outside of the CRA district, if I am correct, Mr. Holmes.
You would have to show a benefit to the CRA district in order to spend money outside of the district. So you'd have to show it.
But that looks like it's minor, right?
Very much.
Okay, but you're asking for a loan?
Yeah, there's no money
There's
associated.
no cost
That's gonna be my
associated with that.
Okay, good.
And then if they take the boat down the river, that might help people spend their money.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear on
Right.
the boundary.
Yes, part of the handout was actually part of the DEO grant here, and you can kind of see how we detailed all of that. And the benefit to the district here would be for the hotels, the restaurants, the food and drinks, and all of that here in downtown Palatka. The revitalized historic Palatka group and downtown Palatka group are participating in this.
Right.
So the money that we're asking to loan is for promotion and to conduct the event. That's what we're asking to do.
Can I ask a question? So the loan you're asking for a quote loan from the CRA in the amount of 10 grand.
Right.
Is that right?
Yep.
So let's assume you don't get any money other than the $7,000 that I understand you already have.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Two $3,500 grants you've got.
Right.
And let's assume you get 10 from the city.
Right.
So that's 17 total.
Right.
Is the event going to go forward?
Yes. Yes, it would. And that's, again, goes back to the differences between the TDC budget and the DEO budget. Okay, if we get the DEO funds, and then this TDC budget is based on none of that. But if we get the DEO budget, then obviously we can do $5,000 worth of advertising instead of $2,500 worth of advertising. Basically, the amount of cash that we need up front is to apply for all the things that the grant would cover. That's the idea. So if we don't get the grant money, then obviously we won't spend the money. That's the idea.
Can you explain the loan to me, the terms of the loans?
Oh, the terms of the loan from the CRA?
Right, he's asking for a loan from the CRA, I was just
Well,
asking,
I don't know what else to call it.
We've done that, haven't we done that with the craft festival? They hadn't, we gave them money and then they paid us back?
I'm just asking to understand what he's asking for.
They paid some of it
They
back.
paid some of it.
To my understanding, what he's asking for is the money to spend on the TDC grant funds that he knows are coming back in, because you have to spend those before you can be reimbursed for them.
So
And,
you would reimburse out of the TDC?
If you get it.
well, he's got the
He's got
TDC,
that.
that's approved. The 7,000 is approved. The
He
two
has
3,500s from the TDC have been approved.
He's asking for 10.
I just know that the 7,000 has been approved.
So, but and I'm not trying to say yes or no, I'm not trying to weigh in on whether it should or shouldn't, I'm just saying the loan. You're asking
Right.
for a loan to be repaid at some date in the future?
Well, the way that I understood it had worked in the past was basically, and the 10,000 number, I'll tell you, was before I talked to Mandy about the DEO grant. If we get the DEO grant, that comes to the city, and the city disperses that money, and so therefore we don't need reimbursement for that. The city will get reimbursement for it. Okay, so so the $10,000 money, that was based upon both grants. Okay, if we need to just do the $7,000 to get the TDC grant money, that's fine with me.
I'm not being critical.
No,
at
no,
all.
no,
I'm
no,
not
I-
trying,
well,
I'm
what
just
you're
trying to
saying-
understand so that and I don't get to vote, so it doesn't matter. I'm just trying to understand.
What you're
Okay.
saying makes sense. The 7,000 is what's really needed in order to spend the money on the advertising and the things that have to happen for the event to happen. That gets reimbursed by the TDC. I'm not sure how long TDC reimbursement takes. I believe it's about a month once you turn in the receipts.
And that's a guarantee, the
And
seven,
that is
that's 7,000.
guaranteed. That is
So-
locked in.
What-
If the DEO grant comes through, it'll come through to the city, because the city had to partner with the organization to get it. So I don't really see why any funds need to be borrowed against that one. We either get it or we don't.
Right.
So the extra money is for extra
Right.
publicity. So
Okay, well,
Did the Azalea Festival did this, although we didn't ask for a loan, we did it ourselves, but we got a grant from the TDC. We advertised outside the county. It was fantastic, because our Azalea attendance, it was much better this year. But there are a lot of stipulations. We had to jump through hoops. We had to, because the county makes sure that, and if it's not perfect, you do not get that reimbursement.
That is correct.
So you have to make sure that you're perfect in every little thing. And we spent a lot of time, and it took 6 weeks to get our refunds, but we did get them. And it was of benefit. But my question is how will the CRA be reimbursed, and what is what happens if it rains this weekend and you don't know what's going to happen on your income? I mean,
Well, there's no income tied to the TDC grant. The TDC grant is for very specific purposes.
I'm asking about the loan for the CRA.
I think what Sam is trying to say is
Where's the safety net for the CRA?
reduce the loan from the CRA from the 10 that he originally thought he should ask for to the 7
7.
that's guaranteed, because that advertising money will be spent before we even know if it's going to rain or not. And then as soon as the money's reimbursed, it's turned over immediately back to the CRA.
okay, and then if they get the 10, if we get the 10, can the city keep it and put it aside to help do it another year or something?
Well, if we get the DEO grant, it would be locked to this year's event, but it would come in before the event as well. We should hear about that one soon.
Okay,
It's-
They'll be able to use it.
They would be able to use it, yes, ma'am.
just allow for more advertising, you'll be able to
Right.
capitalize on that.
Well, that primarily was for the advertising and for some other things.
City manager has
Actually, that's all detailed in the paperwork.
city manager has
A question. Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for coming in a few minutes late. The $2,076 for City of Palatka special events invoice. Did I come in at a time where I heard something, a request for waiver of those fees?
I'd love for it to be.
I don't believe it's the city policy to waive those fees for events.
I don't know that they asked. I didn't hear him ask for that.
Yes,
I
yes.
thought
I did.
Sam
I-
verified that
I
that's what he was
clarified
asking
that
for.
with him. He was asking for two things, a loan and fees.
Yeah.
I heard,
I
I
just-
heard it. I heard it, loud and clear.
I just want it to be
Okay.
known by the,
Okay, but I do have
board that we
another-
don't normally waive those fees. We waive a permit fee, but not the fees associated with the personnel costs to put on the event, because those are hard costs that the city has to cover.
Although, Mr. Reynolds,
Yes.
what did we promise the Porch Fest and Azalea?
We paid $1,300 for the Azalea.
Okay, and we
Fees for
promised
the
that to
Azalea.
the Porch, but they didn't go through with
They
it.
gave
I
it
think
back.
I was out of the South Historic and.
Right, out of,
Yeah.
so we did do that, and that was applied to the fees.
But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was communication that there was going to be a reimbursement of those costs from the sales and revenues that were,
No,
I thought there
no,
was.
I sat right here, and that did not
Okay,
happen.
maybe I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but I thought there was.
Because
Well, I just-
what I asked for was the same thing that the Porch Fest asked for, and there was no reimbursement for the Porch Fest either.
But as a city manager, I want to caution us that starting the process of waiving hard cost fees associated with events is going to open up a concern that we're going to be faced with many requests.
Because we're all going to walk through that door.
Instead of looking at it as a waiving of the fees, could Sam rephrase his request that the CRA, specifically the CBD portion, help in the payment of those fees, since 99.9% of the festival is occurring within the central business district and will promote and bring traffic into it?
That's the same thing the Azalea did. They requested payment for
I think so, I have to rephrase that, well, rephrase.
So would that be in addition to the 7,000?
Yes, sir, it would.
So we're back to 10.
Not quite. They're requesting a loan of 7 and then a gift of whatever amount the CRA sees that they can do to help with the fees, especially in this first
And
year.
I believe those fees will be a little bit more.
I have said over and over at this board meeting that we need a policy on what we're doing with this, because this door is opening, and it's not going to be long before some big group from outside of our area comes in and says, and you have done this, and can we now have 25,000? And we have no policy, and we just kind of, and which is exactly why Azalea walked through the door, because we opened it, and I said when we did it, I was coming the next meeting and walked through the door, and I did.
So,
And I will do it again.
Well,
So
from
that
from a legal perspective, my concern is only that we tie whatever you do to an element of the plan.
Correct.
Which has to be our guiding light, in this deal, that whatever money, whether you do 7, 10, whatever, it be tied to an element of the plan, and I understand this is being tied to an element of essentially business development, encouraging visitors to come in and spend money in your central business district. So from that perspective, are we talking about semantics, Sam, in that instead of waiving a fee, the fee's paid, but it's paid out of CRA funds pursuant to that element of the plan that we just discussed?
Although we could say we're going to pay it out of the share that the county gives us.
We could.
Be there,
Then the county's paying. No. But what I also want to say with this is what impresses me with what we're doing here, so Sam, is I cannot remember this many groups coming together to work,
It's unbelievable.
ever.
Unbelievable.
And that is, that is a feat that's to get that many to cooperate is unbelievable. So I really honor the work that has gone in to make this event come forth with this many groups.
yes.
Well, thank you, Sam. And, this commission was involved with a momentous event just last month. And that was when the Greenways and Trails Council and so the city commission took it on, the county commissioners took it on, and my favorite picture of all time is when all of you guys have your aprons on and we're standing up there with all the county commissioners. That is really cooperation, and that was the whole idea behind this event, was for it to become a Putnam County and Palatka event, so that everybody, all of the civic groups could participate in this thing. Nobody's getting rich off this thing, especially me. And so this is just, if this is the way, in my opinion, that it ought to be done. You ought to have all these groups on. Now, part of what you see here is not, the full story is not being told, because at our last meeting, the St. Johns Riverkeeper showed up. And not only her, but the St. Johns River Water Management showed up. They want to take this event and make it a week-long educational event for our school system. And that's what they're doing. They're coming in here and they're going to have busloads of Putnam County kids showing up at the River Center, and we're going to start educating them on the river and the vitality of the river and all that kind of stuff as part of their normal curriculum for the state school system. And that's just huge. I mean, it's enormous. So we've got volunteers from the school system coming. We've got the Riverkeeper coming and spending all week here educating our kids, and St. Johns River Water Management District is supporting the Riverkeeper in those efforts. Isn't that something? I mean, that's just amazing.
I would
Absolutely
say,
it is.
if we are trying to promote this town as a tourist
Yes.
destination, we have got to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
So we just need to just put this on your heart and mind, that you need to be thinking about how we can participate, not get in trouble, but really participate to help push this along. Rufus?
Well, I wholeheartedly support the whole plan. And again, it's just a drop in the bucket for what they're asking for. And again, like Sam mentioned, it's really going toward the area, the central business, coming out. It's helping the CRA as a whole. Anyway, we're bringing tourism, bringing people in, looking at our city, and that's what it's all about. We had people from Tallahassee all the way down to Central Florida with the number of people they had, and they were part of various branches that did help with a number of things along the Barton Trail, in addition to what they're coming back to do. So again, we did talk about the set amount of money several meetings back. So I'd like to make a recommendation, for the city manager, at least let's see what we can do to add that into our 17-18 budget, to make sure that those funds are there, even if it's outside of the CRA. Let's make sure that set amount of funds is there for events and people coming and asking for any assistance, because it's come to us several times.
So maybe we need to say the people who pay taxes in the city can apply for the funds, and that makes people not feel so bad sometimes if they
Well, no, it's just whatever the events that we've been having in the past, and people coming and asking for the funds. Again, whatever we do, we at least need to have a pool of money available, and we've asked for it. We kind of agreed upon that, and we need to make it happen.
Tammy?
And I do think we need to keep in mind what the city attorney suggested, to tie it to an element of a plan. I mean, just not having those monies out there for anybody to come in and just get it, but see how it's beneficial to.
But I think if we're going to do what is being suggested, I think we need criteria before we put before that's included in the budget, because you need criteria. There are events that would not benefit downtown at all.
But the festivals mainly fit around our CRA stuff for the most part, doesn't it? Because everything happens
Now,
there.
what is a festival?
Excuse me?
What's a festival? Anybody that comes is doing a festival. It can be a festival for 100, it can be a festival for 10,000.
But we can refine that, but what
I
I'm
think
saying.
we need criteria.
Right.
You want to say something, Commissioner Campbell?
Yeah, okay.
For me, I want to address, this is an issue that needs to be addressed solely with us, and let that be like the sole focus. I think for right now, let's come up with what we can do immediately, if we can do something, and then let's make sure that we do have this discussion, because I agree with Commissioner Borum. We have, and Mr. Deputy, we've had this conversation several times, and it seemed like every time we've met over the last half of year that we've had the same conversation. So I think that we need to really, I hate the word workshop, but if we need to workshop this so that we can try to come up with the drill, but let's see what we can do immediately for Mr. Carr.
Amen.
And then let's address this issue at hand together, if we need to, or at least have staff come back with a recommendation of language.
Can we have a motion to what we like to do so that we can get this done?
Make a motion to, I guess, develop.
No,
No,
let's do
right here.
this one.
For what we need to do.
Oh, make a motion for Sam?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to
Working now.
support the event, the cost associated with it, as it relates to coming out of the CRA's funds.
Let me make sure I'm understanding, because I think there were two requests.
Right.
What are you making that request for?
Well,
Because you
he
said
had
support.
the 2,000
You said
something.
support, but are we supporting the $2,076, what we know that we can't do? Or are we supporting the 7,000 or the 10,000 that they've originally requested? So it's two.
You say the 7,000. Okay, I would support that, and we will come back. We will need to workshop this, to clear up the 2,000.
Okay, Tammy. Tammy.
So I want to ask you all. You originally asked for the $10,000.
Can't wait, but you can fund it.
Correct.
So that, I think they're asking, go ahead, because I think you're going to answer my question.
Yeah, okay. Me and Mr. Holmes are going to tag team this one.
Okay.
The $7,000 is a repayment by the TDC grant. The $2,076, I don't believe we want to waive the fees.
Correct.
But I think you can, if it's tied to an element within the CRA plan, I think you can go ahead and cover the cost of those fees out of the CRA dollars.
Correct.
If you just funded $9,100 or $9,076,
I'd be home.
the 2,076, we assume we know where it's going. If you choose to spend it on
That's where I'm-
napkins, then I guess that's going to be on you. But that'd be the 7 plus the amount of the fees.
Yep.
It's up to you.
All right, somebody make
But-
this motion.
So you just make one?
In that, we're saying the 7,000 is refundable.
Right, from the TV.
Do we need that as a motion?
But we're trying to get a motion so everybody will know that we're doing it. So you need to give me a motion and then we'll bring it up for a vote from everybody.
We need to know what line we're gonna take budget money out of, put into that line.
Do we have a budget in front of us to
We're
do
about to
that?
have a budget workshop, and we have projected money, all of the money to already be spent, so it would have to be
From this, okay.
from, so it would have to, home improvement program, landscaping, site amenities, I mean, one of those that we projected to spend all of that money by September on.
Could we hit several of those lines? Just maybe,
Is there an education line?
can we hit some of this?
No.
What would be, I mean, again, what would be, even though we know it to be projected, well, what line would be, I mean, what would you suggest? I mean, you are the.
Do we have a
Do
marketing,
we have
I know,
advertising?
I mean,
I haven't been handling the CRA, man. You
Do we have a marketing line?
Okay.
No.
Yeah,
On site amenities, if I'm looking at this correctly, you have budgeted 25,000 and you spent 4,550.
Through 6 months of the year.
Through 6 months of the
There's
year.
But what do
probably
we-
even more than that.
What do we have for site amenities that we,
Is
is that possible?
As I recall, part of that line will be used to replant some things along the Second and St. John's after the CBD.
we don't have an
After it
advertising.
goes through, we have the large construction streets happening on Memorial and Second. We're going to be doing some replanting there. So some of that money has been set aside towards that.
What about the redevelopment incentives, which we haven't spent anything out of this year?
Is that the home improvement program?
It says redevelopment incentives.
I didn't project to
Which is
spend any money
trash
on that for the rest of the year. It's got a zero amount in it, so
It says 40,000.
that was the budgeted amount, but I'm saying when we go into this budget presentation, I had to make assumptions on which lines we would be spending money out of. I got that information from Jonathan and Mandy.
I have
zero
enough.
for that.
I have enough applications for the home improvement program to use up all of those funds by September 30th.
just, the motion needs to include that staff will amend the necessary line to take $2,076 out of it to place into the festivals line, which has a budget of $1,300. That's where we pay the azalea from.
Okay, you also had 25,000 in marketing promotions.
Yeah, and that's a $0 projected for the end of the year as well.
Right, but we're spending that now, so is it there now, or is it not there now? Where do we put it?
You need to look at the projected line.
Projected line.
Yeah, it's in the budget that I sent.
I'm just looking at the budget, but you're saying I need to look at the projected.
There's a projected 2007.
Rip,
To make this easy, I think the easiest thing for you to possibly do is to direct staff to just reduce the amounts in the site amenities line and the home improvement line to equal the 2,600 and change. It shouldn't impact what we need to accomplish if we can split it between the two.
okay.
Does that work?
Can we had a motion to do that?
So moved.
What about the 7,000?
That is reimbursable,
It's
so I put
double.
7 on revenue and 7 on expenditures.
Second.
Okay. It's been motioned and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I'm sorry.
Aye, okay. So it looked like y'all got the,
It's a lot of work, Sam.
Who do I
Sam,
see about getting a check?
either him or him. We don't write checks, do we?
I'll work with Andy. and we'll- Thank you so much.
You got,
Listen,
Thank you.
I really
One out of
appreciate
Matt,
that. This is going to be something big for Palatka, and hopefully this will be an annual thing, and hopefully next year we'll know what we're doing.
okay, is there any, that's all for this meeting, right? Anybody else got any comment, any other business? Motion to adjourn.
second. Thanks, sir. All right, that was,
I did talk to him.
Sam, you didn't know you were gonna have to work so hard.
Mary?
Okay, I'm getting on Max.
Okay, don't go nowhere, we got a 2 o'clock. It's a 2 o'clock.
I need,
Okay, no, go ahead, we'll give it 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minute break, get off here. And I'm not gonna read all this stuff, y'all all here.
Thank you.
And the purpose is to go into the workshop, because we got another meeting coming up after this. We'll have, Matt take us through with, our budget workshop. And for us, we all have to make our questions short. You can say it shortly and get a good answer.
I think we have enough time with this workshop and the regular budget workshop after this. If it's fine with commissioners and Mr. Deputy, I'll stand up here. It's kind of easier instead of standing at the podium.
Okay.
CRA budget, let's see, first slide is increment values. This is how the tax increment fund derives their revenues. So for anyone not familiar with how tax increment funding works, there is a base taxable year, which in the case of the downtown district, that was 1983, and their base taxable value was $14,750,000. Then you take the taxable value for the current year, which this year was $29 million, and you take the difference between the two, which is called the increment, and that's $14,354,000. You take that and multiply it by the millage rate divided by 1,000 gets you the revenue amount. And now the city and the county both does that. So the county's portion is based on their millage rate, the city portion is based on our millage rate. So starting with downtown, from this year to next year, we saw an increase of almost $6 million. That was a 41% increase. I do not know why it was such a large increase. We speculate that it was probably the hotel in the 100 block. However, I'll be able to determine that once that information is released on the tax bills in November. We'll know exactly what the difference was on those two parcels, and I'll be able to determine if it was just those two parcels, if it was district-wide, just everything going up. I think it may be a little bit of both. South Historic and North Historic, their base years are both 1994, and they have a much smaller increment amount. However, South was $4,900,000 this year, and almost 5.8 next year. I think that was about 13%, which is a good sign. And the North as well, they had about a 10% increase. So good news for the 3 TIP funds. Now these are the revenues that come from the county and the city for the downtown TIP. This year, the TIF got about $211,000. Next year, it is almost 300, and that number could change because the county just approved a tentative millage rate of 9.8892. I double checked, their resolution is 9.8892, not 9.98892. So, that would get. Not saying anything, I just double checked the resolution. That would get, I think when I ran the numbers on it, it was about another 15,000 for the downtown TIF if they go forward with that change in the millage rate. So South Historic seeing an increase of almost $13,000, and North seeing an increase of about $3,500. Now this is the breakdown of where the money was budgeted into 4 different categories. I showed this last year. It kind of gives the CRA an idea of what sections or what sectors they're budgeting their money into. And so the 4 are administrative, economic development, capital infrastructure, and marketing and promotions. And we can see the breakdown here for the current year, and then the breakdown for next year. And you'll see that capital and infrastructure is by far the largest amount. And then these slides give the breakdown on the individual line items included in the budget. So under economic development, we've still got the small business development center, $20,000. That's the same as current year. $6,000 in the maintenance contract, that's a decrease from 10. That is for additional maintenance over and above what the city normally provides. CRAs are allowed to do that, and we're decreasing that amount. What's that?
What are we maintaining?
Jonathan?
Gateway landscape beds and some of the stuff that you see from Reed Street and St. John's Avenue beds.
Thank you.
I got a request with our small business administration. I've asked them every year to show us how many businesses and how many jobs they brought downtown. They give us an overall of the county. I want to know if we investing this much money in them, what they doing for us.
That's a good question.
And
Because
we have
10 to 20,000.
Yeah, we're giving them, I think we started out with 5, then 10, now we up to 20.
Up to 20.
And I wanna know if we're doing that, because that money could be put into us doing something to help start some businesses ourselves or
Have we
advertisement or something.
Have we officially asked for that report?
Yes, we have. We've
I've
asked
done that for every year.
We've asked for specific things, and they keep giving us just a wrap of a general summary.
I wanna know what they're doing. If they are doing stuff to increase the businesses downtown. 'Cause
I
know
agree.
she's-
I agree that I think we need detailed reports, but I'm just making sure that we have officially asked in writing.
Well, if Ms. Madam Chair.
That's okay.
Mayor,
That's
how
okay.
do I-
It don't matter.
If why don't the city manager reach out to Cheryl and ask her to not only put together a report for us, asking for those specifics with how it relates to the city of Palatka, but we'll also see if we can get a report either on the 27th of July or our budget.
Before we approve of this budget.
September, absolutely. So we'll have that information, we'll reach out for that information and get it to you beforehand.
Because, we're trying to get more businesses downtown, and just look what that hotel has done for our taxes. And if we get other people coming in here, then it should help us. My grandmama says every little bit helps, it should help us too. And I'd like to know what you're doing for me. It's fine, because we the county seat, but we want to know what you're doing for us.
Proof in the pudding.
We've also got $40,000 in redevelopment incentives. That's the same amount as the current year. That is for things like big applications, facade grant applications, recruitment project, any of the various project programs that we have approved for the downtown CRA. Under capital and infrastructure, which was the largest, $15,000 in wayfinding. That's directional signage. That's the same as the current year. 10,000 in landscaping, that was a decrease from 15,000. 10,000 in site amenities, that's a decrease from 25,000. 30,000 in the home improvement program, same amount as the current year. And then the two large amounts are 130,000 for vaulted stormwater ponds. That's a transfer to Better Place because the total estimated cost for that is 300,000. So Better Place has a share of 170, and downtown Tip has a share of the 130.
Okay, I got one more thing. This wayfaring, I've been doing some traveling, and they have historical signs put up around town. I know that if we put the ones that come from the state, those things are $1,500 to $2,000 a piece. If not doing it, but seeing another way that we might be able to put some historical markers on some of these areas, because we have some historical stuff that's been here. It may be that we have a contest or something to see if somebody can design and make up signs and put their names on it, or get somebody to help us do something so that people can see, because we can have a walking tour along with everything else in our downtown, and we go ahead and do it. So I want to put that on your hearts and minds, so you need to think about it and talk about it. Okay.
10,000 in landscaping. I'm back on the trees on St. John's Avenue, which are looking particularly distressed this year. I don't think there's a single tree without dead branches, including the one in front of my building. But we're now getting comments about that. And some of those trees look like Charlie Brown's Christmas tree. Is this minor amount of 10,000 in landscaping going to do anything for those trees?
All we've done, because we don't want to go through and replace all the street trees until we've had a chance to go through and do the sidewalks and the infrastructure, is when we have a tree come down or a tree that we have to remove because it's gotten diseased or it's declined to the state where it's a hazard, we use this fund to replace it. You probably saw 3 or 4 elms get replanted following Hurricane Matthew. It came out of this fund because those trees came down and the city doesn't fund for tree replacement.
Okay, but when there's damage like that, there's insurance, isn't there, for hurricane damaged trees? Didn't the city receive insurance on those trees that came down?
Did not insure it.
They're not insured?
Well, we have a very high insurance deductible for hurricanes, and those specific trees, you have to insure them separately.
The ordinance says we can't touch the trees in front of our buildings. And we need to do something, but the city needs to come through and trim those trees, because dead branches on your main business street is, Park Avenue would never have that in Winter Park.
Mr. Deputy, if you're
Yes.
aware of a specific location, please call me or my office and let us know, and we'll go and have that trimmed.
Jonathan, I'll make you a list. Thank you.
In the interim, is there a way that we can look at that ordinance? If somebody is willing to take care of the tree that's outside of their facility, as long as it's doing minimal maintenance.
We would need to talk to our city attorney about any liability that would incur.
Yeah, and he's not here.
If they assume liability, if their building is insured and they take care of that, that's why I said, if they, with limited care, because if we're not tending to the tree, chop them down and put something else up there that, requires a minimum to no maintenance. Because we're gonna have to keep him, Mr. Deputy.
As long as I sit here. As long as I sit here. Personally, I would like to see a tree that does not lose its leaves and is,
It doesn't exist.
There's no such thing.
Yeah.
a pine tree.
Put it on
You know,
official.
but an eagle like a holly doesn't look bare for 4 months.
He's complaining about his Charlie Brown tree, it's a pine tree.
Anything that's green, because, we have moss trees for 4 months, and then we have the pitiful trees we have now for 8 months.
Go chop the one in front of his business down.
See there, Mr. Griffith, you should have been listening to me.
And put up an East Palatka holly.
He
But this does not include that. There's no maintenance on that.
No, sir, that will
Okay,
come out
so
of the
what you're telling me
surplus
is
trees
the city has no fund to maintain trees on city property.
That's not what he said. What he said was it doesn't come out of this fund, but
Okay,
we
so-
do have a fund in the
Because I
general
can,
fund
I
that takes
can,
care of
okay,
that.
because I can stand at the podium and ask for this money if there's general budget money. Okay,
I can see,
I'll get you a list, Jonathan, thank you.
And while we would appreciate volunteers going out and trimming our trees, not everyone has an eye for trimming.
Thank you.
And
And
they
doesn't
butcher.
have a background in horticulture, so let us help you out, just tell us
Well,
where you need help.
we know of one building owner that got permission and there is now no tree there.
And that's probably the best.
No, it's not. Because you don't go to a city and not see trees.
I know, I'm just
But,
saying.
yeah,
We're not gonna kill,
Okay.
we're not gonna kill
I'm
the
sorry.
aesthetics
We'll
of
get to
city.
the budget.
All right.
I'm sorry.
but Sam does have a legitimate concern though. But like you say, he making a request for the city to do his part, and then but the ordinance ties his hands where he's already researched and see where he can't make changes to that. So I think what we ought to do is whatever we can do to accommodate.
I believe Mr. Griffin has it on his list of
And
things.
he said,
after that,
Thank you,
to
Jonathan.
take a
Moving
ride
along.
down
We'll
St.
take it-
John's
we'll
Avenue
take
and
it
look at
from
a
there.
tree.
Back to
and
Madam
I
Chair.
guess we're gonna move on.
Yeah.
Okay, the second large amount that we have in the budget is transferred to the utility fund, $133,000 for the downtown TIF's share of the potable line replacement project. And I've included this table in the presentation. There's a lot of numbers there. But this is the potable line replacement project that we discussed at previous CRA workshop. However, this is just one phase of addressing all of the issues. It does not address all of the potable line replacement in all three districts. That will be future phases. And what this one does address, I have a map we'll show in a minute, but the total cost for just this phase is, we began with engineering, $137,000. And so the north and the south both had infrastructure money set aside in the current year to cover part of the engineering and part of the construction. So those two numbers are here, and the 16, 17 TIF monies to be used for construction and engineering. The downtown did not have any money set aside, so we are setting aside that money next year. This is the 133, 15, and 117. So 137 in engineering, construction bid came in at $1,600,000. And then you can see the breakdown for each district in these figures here. So the South did have some money for next year that they could put toward their construction. However, the remaining amount after all of the TIF monies were applied is shown here. We did get the $500,000 from St. Johns River Water Management District, and so those monies were applied to the three districts, and so there was no remaining amount for the north and downtown. However, I think in future phases, there's a lot more that needs to be done in downtown, correct, Jonathan? North TIF will be done, completely done, and the south TIF will be completely done, correct?
Assuming we do what we need to do next year.
Okay. So after we've applied the water management district money, $725,000 is still needed for the South TIF district. And so as we discussed at the CRA budget workshop, we are going to look at getting SRF funding, which is state revolving fund money from the DEP, hopefully at a very, very low or no interest rates. However, when we discussed going and getting these SRF loans, we were only going to use approximately 33% of the respective districts' annual revenues, so as to not spend all of the money that they get every year on a 20-year loan for this type of infrastructure. So 33% of the South Historic District annual revenues gets $459,000. So that leaves $265,000 that is still needed to complete the project, and we've put that in the utility fund. So the city's utility fund will be contributing $265,000 to get that project completed. And now I have a picture that Jonathan sent me. You want to explain the picture here? For a second.
So this is technically phase 1A of phase 1A and 1B. What's outlined in red will be done prior to, or awarded to, prior to fiscal year 17-18. Ultimately, with the SRF funding and the utility funding that Matt's describing, we'll end infrastructure, as well as this. Our main priority is getting the main line from here all the way back down, patched into the good line that's here, and then back down here and down Kirby, so we can continue to the other areas outside of the tip. But all the north tip will be done with this initial phase. This main line run, this main line run, this main line run, and these cross connections. And then next year with SRF and utility funding, complete this section and this section.
Looks good.
Excellent project.
Excellent project.
Okay, so, moving on from that, here are the other two categories of downtown TIF expenditures, marketing and promotions and administrative. Marketing and promotions, we left the transfer into the general fund for the cost of running the electricity lights. That's the same as current year. We did increase the $8,000 to $12,000 for the cost of purchasing Christmas lights and putting those Christmas lights up. So, and we also included $10,000 for fireworks. That's the same as the current year.
We could probably use some of that Christmas like money, maybe. Because
Please,
Go ahead,
come on.
Go ahead, Go ahead.
Even if we have stumps, we're putting up lights.
And then in the administrative portion, there's about $1,100 in Florida Redevelopment Association dues, Department of Economic Opportunity dues, and other miscellaneous expenses that may come up for that fund. The transfer back to the general fund for administrative expenses is increasing from approximately $7,400 this year to $36,000 because we've included the same thing that we proposed last year, which is 50% of the grants/special project coordinator position, the total cost of that position to be split between the three TIF funds based on a proportionate share of each fund's expenditures.
After talking to you yesterday, Mr. Reynolds, I don't have any problem with that. But my question today is, usually within a grant, you get so much administrative cost. Where does that money go?
Which grant?
In any grant, you get administrative costs, normally, right?
Well, not always. Not always. On, for example, on CDBG grants and things like that, there will be administrative costs. What is it, Jonathan? Use about $50,000, $60,000?
Could be up to 55.
Up to 55. And that goes to Fred Fox, the person who helped us get the grant. The city does not get the administrative cost for those typically.
So
Sometimes we
okay,
do.
I thought that Fred Fox had to administer because he's the one that reports back about our grants, right? To make sure that we have completed them, they're on target, everything's.
They don't do all of the administration.
Okay, but on the other grants we get, where does, if there are administrative funds included, where does that go?
I'm trying to think of another grant we've gotten that we've got administrative expenses on.
It was about 5 or 6 years ago on a Division of Historical Resources grant, and since then, what we typically do is rather than claim administrative costs, we leverage our in-kind administrative costs for additional capital. It's a way to get more done.
I understand. Okay, I'm just asking because I just wonder where those funds are.
Those are great questions, but don't let the title of grant/special project coordinator confuse you. It's not, grants doesn't mean just going out and applying for and receiving grants. Grant management also means that when folks come into the TIF districts and they want to apply for grants, that is also part of that.
Okay.
Okay, so it'll be the other side of those grants, okay?
Gotcha.
And that's what means it.
Correct.
Okay, so the South Historic TIF, again, about $1,000 in those dues. I think there was $500 in promotions and some miscellaneous expenditures. $10,000 in landscaping, $40,000 in their home improvement program, and then the large transfer to the utility fund, $521. That's made up of $62 out of reserves, and then the $459 from the SRF loan. So that'll be coming in and going out. And then I've also included the first semi-annual payment for the SRF loan. That I approximated it at $14,000. So if that's a semi-annual payment, then the total per year would be $28,000, and that is 33% of their annual revenues. Again, their transfer to the general fund increased from $2,600 to $9,500 because we've added in the same thing that we did in the downtown. TIF, roughly the same thing, about 1,000 FRA dues, promotions, expenditures. Their transfer to general is 4,300, that's up from 1,100, 30,000 in the home improvement program, and they have about 13 that's unallocated at this moment that they could request to be allocated to other projects or funds. That's it for CRA. Short and
Any
short,
questions?
sweet, 15 minutes.
Any questions?
Everything in there is really, really good.
We all happy with what they've got so far, so.
It's gonna be
Public
good. Yes,
Come on
ma'am.
up, Robert.
While she's coming up, I'll say if we're wanting to do something about funding festivals, we would need to take it out of
Downtown.
some of these lines. Where's it at? We would need to amend probably some of these lines to
And
shift those monies around.
for that question, is the city dock itself and all of the park in the central district, or does any of the park go into the south?
Some's in the south. Some is in the
Okay,
south.
so then if we're going to do that festival and part of that is in the south, you know, technically we cannot fund it.
Whoa.
Excuse me, Robert Correa, 118 Dodge. The festival is not going to be at that end of the park.
Oh.
No, in any festival.
Well, then that's something for the future, but right now it's not. This festival is not.
Legally,
Sam,
Yes.
crunching
Yeah.
numbers.
yes.
Oh, Sam.
But
My question was, last year, we did have money allocated for promotion marketing in the central business tip, which is one part of the goals in the plan. It was $25,000 that was not used, and now it's just gone away. And it wasn't being used for fireworks, lighting, etc. It was with the intent of promoting and marketing downtown Palatka, which we don't do a good job of. And I know that money would have to come from somewhere else, it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul, but why was that removed? Do we know? I know we didn't use it because we never quite got together and got our act together to sit down with Mr. Suggs and come up with a plan to use it that was acceptable. But I think it's something we need to do.
Well, I think you just answered your question there. We actually put funds in the budget in particular fund lines that we actually had conversation on to pay for the things that were being requested at the time. If there's a request now to go back and revisit our budget and change some of the allocations of those to be able to fund a separate marketing line, then we'll need to do that between now and September.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anything else, Sam?
well, is that what? We need a Christmas tree.
I want the Christmas tree.
We need a Palatka, City of Palatka Christmas tree. But I do believe that we do need to be somehow marketing our city. I don't know if any of you have hooked it, but we found the old commercial for PR commercial that I think the chamber did when Lyndon B. Johnson came.
Oh.
And I was there. I was there when he came. You know, pushed the button and blew up the barge canal.
When they opened the barge canal.
Right, he was here, but it was a fantastic, and the comments that are coming from that commercial are unbelievable. People are saying, what happened? I mean, it looked so good back then, what happened? But the conversation is great, and, you know, we have so much to talk about, and we keep it right here. Our visitors love it, but we don't tell anybody outside of our county.
Oh, yes, we do.
Well, one or two people do, but I'm talking about mass marketing, you know?
Well, let me bring this up. I have been talking to the dean of the college out there. When we got the water taxes, people need to know about that because they said they had some people here last week that said they'd never been on a boat before. And they don't have access to it. And I kind of talked to the dean and asked him, could we come and talk to him about getting them to do something, to do a promotional thing so that we could put it, all these people get on Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. We got a bunch of ways to get some of this out there. And I think they called it a street dance that they did a few years ago where all the people in town came together, and if we could get the School of the Arts people to kind of train a bunch of people, and we do a commercial with us coming down and showing our town, it might be something, because young people gonna look at at music. Then look at, if you gotta have some rap in there, mixture of stuff. You got to get something that when people see it, they go, wait a minute, stop. And I think that if we came together as a town and said that we wanted to do some of this, we'd have people who would help us to do it and volunteer some of it, and we could get a real nice promotional thing done that we could put in all kinds of places. The other thing we never do is everybody else that has a festival, Jacksonville people come with their TV stuff and they advertise the Shrimp Fest in Fernandina, the stuff they're doing in St. Augustine. Well, we're a big part of them too, and we have it, and no, they never talk about that. So we need to start looking at ways to help promote ourselves. I talked to a salesperson the other day, and they called and told my son they came to town and they had such a good time, they're gonna bring another whole group back over here. So we just got to be that force. Sometimes eat an elephant, you just take a bite at a time, and each one of us take a bite, we can soon get through it. And I think if we would think about it, we could help put something together that would really be good.
Go ahead.
I thought, and this is just a point of clarification, the only reason that the riverboat is not necessarily being promoted at this time because they're working on a master schedule and pricing for the riverboat, and I think that's my understanding, and I just want to put that out there. That is that correct? That's probably the only reason that there's no mass campaign to let it know that it's out there, and it's on an as-need basis as of now until they work out the kinks with pricing.
Terminal billing also isn't completed yet either.
Yeah, they're trying to ease it.
But my understanding, John, let me ask this, is that's going to be a private business.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not marketing and funding private business promotion. But my concern is, and what we could do is, I understand using students. Sheesh. We have professionals right here in this town that can they're in the next building, that can make commercials for us. They're right here. We just need to say, do this and let's do it.
I think I walked into this conversation, I was coming back to give you some clarification.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Just so everyone is aware, the Riverfront Park is in the Central TIF District. A portion of it falls in the South Historic District. And also in the plan, just so you're aware, it refers to the North and South TIF, specifically the South, I'd have to check on the North, in partnering with the festivals. So there's language in there for all three districts to kind of work on festivals, but just clarification, the Riverfront is in the Central TIF. Yeah.
But see, I need to tell you, you're talking about, I don't want to promote one business, I'm talking about, when we
No,
do this thing,
I'm
it will
saying,
promote
right, you
all
mentioned,
businesses.
right.
Okay?
I want to promote the city.
That's it.
City of Palatka.
That's it.
And I think instead of using students and all that, let's go right over here to Tony and them at the school board who make commercials all the livelong day and get it done. It's done.
Well, I was saying come together. I just said that was one entity we talked. I intend to beg the school system and anybody else who needs to get it done.
Let's get it done.
We are better together. If we all come together, we can get it done.
So are we looking for a motion to approve this budget?
Okay. You want to make a motion?
Is the CRA going to have another meeting before, end of September?
The first Saturday, the first Monday in the month.
Because it's technically a workshop.
You
Can't take action on it. But, this was just a discussion to talk about what we've got so far, get input, see if any changes need to be made.
When's the next CRA meeting scheduled?
You canceled the August meeting.
Okay. So September, so we'll come back when we
Do it before we adopt the.
Quick question, did you guys address the possibility of the electronic signing?
That wasn't discussed.
Mason, you want to
Who wants
talk
to
to us
talk
about
about
it?
Who wants to talk about it?
You can't have this back yet.
Some
I
of
ain't
these
told.
lines, maybe, so that we want to get the mayor up to snuff right here, what we were talking about with the downtown TIF expenditures about possibly looking at some of these line items in order to be able to support maybe when festivals request for funding or different things of that nature. So that's what we were at. Clear it up a little bit.
So, with going through the process, instead of waiving fees that we don't normally waive,
Have an allocation.
to have an allocation for those, to cover the cost of those fees out of the TIF districts, if we could show that they tie to the plan and benefit the TIF districts. We'll talk about it.
And then the only thing I had was, out of the $15,000 that we got set aside for wayfinding, one of the things that I think is most critical when we started talking about what we're doing, particularly within the CRA district, is having the mechanisms in place to invite people in from the roadway. And I think it's a long time coming. We've talked about different areas of signage. I think Jonathan's been working towards that, and he's pretty close to doing some of the things that he talked about doing before. But I also think we should look at it. We don't necessarily have to do it now. We can, it can be something that we look at later on in the year, but I think we also need to at least have in the back of our minds the opportunity to put in electronic signage. One of the places that I thought of is near the River Center on that, just before the right of way, on Reed Street, so that as people come, we can show them the events. They can see on the sign the events that are going on in the community. They can also be directed to historic downtown, all these different things. And I think that goes right along with what I walked into with Mr. Deputy, talking about finding mechanisms that allow us to really promote the entire community. And I think that's one of the things we have to look at, because the other individuals, other organizations that have these signs, they've got certain restrictions that are placed on them based upon their own internal policies. And so we really need to get to a point where we start pushing the city of Palatka through our own mechanisms, and we control what information goes out to the public from there. DOT made it so that we can't put those banners across 17 anymore. But there is an opportunity for us to at least to be able to have some street signage that's there. There may be some zoning issues that we have to address in the future to make sure we get that in place with some housekeeping. But I think that may be an opportunity for us.
I brought up us doing some kind of historical signs, because we can have a walking tour. Because the deputy takes people.
That's what that $15,000 that Jonathan has in there is.
Most of that's actually for public purpose directional signage, but we could look at increasing the budget to do a few more interpretive kiosks within the district, and maybe even get some pricing on an LED sign, see if it's feasible.
Or see if we could work a deal with what the state does in getting us some historical signs, because like Bethel AMD is on the Black Historic Trail. And I'm sure Bookerville, and we've got that governor's house sitting out there, and we've got other stuff that went on. And if we had some way, but they do it in Key West. They have areas that you walk through, and they have a kiosk that tell you a little bit about it. Because people come and they want to know what the different things are. So it may not be that we can do it this year, but at least we need to do some planning so we can start to get some of those things done.
Question, Matt, in yesterday's conversation, you were saying that you wanted to clean up some of this year's budget. We had applications for the home improvement program, et cetera. Can all of that be done in a meeting in September? So that we can catch up with ourselves and get things moving on those other grants that we have waiting?
Well, yeah, those are moving forward, the applications that we've got for the home.
So we don't need to approve
program.
those?
Home improvement don't come before the CRA board, it's the other grants that do.
Okay, home improvement within the central TIF doesn't come before us?
No, sir, they meet the eligibility requirements, they're processed, and we solicit the quotes for the projects, and we handle.
Okay, so that can just continue on?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So is it the pleasure of the CRA to have us go back and look at funding some amount for festival fees? I know, there was discussion of there needs to be certain criteria for it. We need to come up
That
with
was what we
plans.
said, you all go back and look. They said it.
We so moved your motion.
We did that, yeah.
Well, I mean, for that one specific festival, but
No,
what
but we
about
said to look at.
festivals in the future, going into the future?
Yeah,
Okay.
both.
I would like to have some suggested criteria too.
Well, that was the
Understanding that
tied
that's
to
going to be a part of it.
Right.
Which means it's going to be tied to the benefit of one of the CRA TIF districts at the very minimum.
We will do that. That's all I have for CRA.
Any other
That's anything.
comments? Can we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to. Second.
We had a motion and a second.
Wait for a vote or just have one down.
What?
I want to hear that vote. Go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's, yeah.